Great neighbors.
Okay, we are now recording the meeting.
Okay, I'd like to call a order and roll call for the city. of
Hey,
Manistee Housing
you coming to the meeting?
Regular meeting for Thursday, January 16th, 2025. It is now 9:02. Roll call.
Commissioner Pelton.
Here.
Commissioner Walsh. Yes. Commissioner Samansky.
Here.
Commissioner Goodman.
Yes.
President Foster.
Here. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Steve, the only thing that we probably want to clarify is the Baker Tilly presentation should happen under the regular meeting. We have it we adjourn. We don't want to adjourn, so we really want to put, I think, under presentation and discussion. It should move to there, and since it's a quorum and it's a public meeting, we don't want to adjourn the meeting and have them, so we want to do it during the regular process.
But I think as number 7, I think it should come after the public
Yeah,
comment.
yeah, we can move that. Absolutely.
I will make the motion that we accept the agenda with the revisions.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda. Approval of minutes for the regular meeting on December 19th, approval of bills and disbursements for December of 2024, and the financial reports for November.
Move to accept consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, old business, Century Terrace mini split heat pump update.
We're just gonna do bills and disbursements because we moved them up. We moved bills and disbursements up. Typically we would do those separately now, I believe.
We accepted the whole consent agenda.
Okay.
You can do it on this.
So we did okay. So the mini splits.
Did
So,
you have a reason you wanted something separate or no?
no,
Okay.
we had moved them up, so I just want to make sure you knew they were moved up to the beginning of the. So we are still receiving information on the mini splits. Because it's such a huge expense. It's like a $2 million project to install approximately 130 mini splits at Century Terrace. So consumers would be able to do like 10 other housing commissions for the price it would cost to do one here. So they have actually partnered with another company now, though, to see if they can make this happen. So I hope to provide additional information at the next meeting on the possibility of, we're actually, there's a good possibility that we are still gonna be able to do that. But we still would need Commonwealth to agree to that upgrade.
To share the money.
No,
Let's do it.
I'm trying to get 100% of it paid through incentives and rebates.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're still trying to do it at no expense to the property.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, and I think that looking over what they're trying to do here, I don't think we need like 114 heads. I think one head would service 2 different apartments.
They would zone it then.
Yeah. However, the head, what's the unit that goes in the house versus the one that's outside?
I'm not sure of the dialogue, but you know, the compressor basically, which is on the outside, normally can feed five
Heads, right?
separate, but we're all different. Some are only 3, so it just depends on the unit.
But I think they should look at that, which would be a cost savings, and buildings wouldn't look as much like a 49 as they would with 114 units hanging out there. But good, I hope you get that. CMHC audit engagement letter for our audit for fiscal year end 12/31/24.
Yeah, so just so it's understood that this is for the public housing units only.
Okay.
And they were able to get the information from the previous auditor. There was a little delay in that, but they did receive that, so they were able to schedule the audit. There was some concern if they could do it without previous information, but they received it.
Okay, my question is, CTHB, who's doing that audit? Do we have to?
No, you do not have to approve it. That's the ownership entity. They're already engaged in it.
Tidwell.
Tidwell.
Yeah, we are providing them documents, like they have requested everything, and we are at the tail end of giving them everything they requested.
And that's an audit of the partnership. So that's, Scenair is involved. Scenair gets a copy of that audit. They base some of their clients based on the audit.
Deferred developer fee for 2024.
So that was, this was received by the Housing Commission as part, remember our agreement was a 75-25% split in the developer fee. So, I can't remember the amount, but 500,000 roughly was deferred back into the project, and a lot of projects defer the developer fee back into it. So, at the end of last year, there was enough operating surplus cash to start. The first thing that the property has to do is pay that deferred developer fee. There's a cash waterfall, they call it. Any surplus cash goes to these particular items. Number one is deferred developer fee. So, and obviously the developer wants their developer fee paid back, and it's a requirement because it has tax complications if it doesn't get paid back. So this is our 25% of last year's deferral amount. I think there's about 200,000 to go roughly.
And we get
We
25%.
do 25% of that. And just so you know, then what we've received today, we've spent some on some of the improvements out front on the riverfront. But that is mostly been transferred into the Riverside, and so will this, so that it's not part of the public housing balance sheet. Want to make sure that we separate that out, and then we're able to use this to do other projects. It'll be
On that
unrestricted.
property over there.
We,
Just
on anything, Karen,
on anything.
and
Oh,
anything that Riverside nonprofit does. So this is good seed money to
Yeah.
do a project.
okay.
But not scattered, just here.
You could spend it on scale if you wanted to,
Oh, okay.
but if you want to do that based on our
Yeah.
conversation later today.
Right, yeah, but we could.
But we could.
Okay.
Okay, any further old business? Okay, moving to new business. Assistant director position description.
So at the last, the budget that was adopted included this position. So this is the description to match, and I think we would want you guys to approve and authorize the position based on this job description.
And this has everything to do with succession plan.
Yeah, that's part, yep.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
You making the motion?
Oh, I don't know if we're still discussing. I make a motion to accept the position description that we're going to put on out in advertising right now, right? Okay. For an assistant director.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Spectrum bulk solutions option.
This looks exciting.
Yeah, so as promised, to bring you back some additional information regarding the bulk agreement. I will be meeting with Spectrum to negotiate, try and get that number down. and additional information. And then I did receive, another email yesterday from Spectrum. I did not, was not able to get that into the agenda, but we actually would also receive approximately, I believe it's $100 per door, if we do upfront. So we have 167 doors. So we would get 100, so we get like $16,000 if we entered into this agreement, for entering into the agreement.
But the agreement is for every door, you're gonna pay the amount.
$47 for internet and cable.
The residents are,
The residents are, but they can elect out of that.
right? Everybody doesn't have to if they choose to not have it.
But we're still gonna pay charter for that.
Right.
We still have to pay the $47.
Oh, we have to pay it.
Or the, $40 or whatever we end up agreeing to. But I'll bring more back on that next month.
So it's like a deposit. We do the first payment, and they.
No, every month?
Every month, CTHV pays charter for 167 apartments to have internet cable, but the residents that choose to take it will get revenue from.
And it's much lower than what the residents are paying now.
Right.
130 is the
But
average.
the problem is, here's the problem, that we have to charge enough to cover our costs. So we're not, the cost will be more than $47. And then it gets to a point where then, at least it did in Big Rapids, where it was almost equivalent to them buying it on their own. And it's an accounting, I mean, it's a headache to do this. So I know it's kind of attractive up front, and then they get the exclusive right. And if you saw in that agreement, it says this is only a entry or a
Right to,
a promotional
Oh, yes.
amount, and they have the right to raise the cost, which
so
they
those are
will.
the items
yeah,
I would
yeah,
definitely
they
make
will do.
sure that we
Now, if we enter into a 5-year exclusive contract with them, the rate will stay the same.
But that's
We
not
will
what
know
they're-
ahead of time.
That's not
That's
what
how
they're
it's
saying.
Well, we'd have to put that in a contract. We'd have to.
Yeah, that's the initial proposal. They have, technology has brought us a long way since we did have the contract in, Big Rapids. And I believe you can go online now and actually turn the services on and off. So they said, they did say that a lot of landlords like it because it's part of the rent. So if the resident doesn't pay the cable internet by the due date, you are able to go ahead and shut it off. So a lot of times, they're more active on paying their rent in a timely manner, so they don't get their internet cable shut off.
Right.
That's more effective than a late rent notice, isn't it?
How many units currently have?
We haven't gotten that
We
far.
haven't got that far.
yet. No, because that's,
Just for-
Spectrum would have that information, but I don't.
Well, just for
But they
the,
will provide it to me.
for the guests that are here to understand, the reason we're doing, that you're doing all this extra legwork is to try to save them money. That's the whole point of this. We don't need to be doing this, but we're doing it to try to save our residents money.
It is the expanded basic. It's not the basic internet as far as cable. And it is 600 megabytes up and 20 megabytes, or 600 megabytes down and 20 megabytes up as far as the internet speed. So
Yeah,
it's
it's,
fairly substantial.
yeah, it's fine.
I think I pay $70 just for my internet alone.
Yeah.
Through Spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding Spectrum is the best service available in this
In
area.
this area.
That's the only,
Yeah.
Yeah.
other than satellite stuff.
I'm surprised another carrier, I mean, even in central Michigan, this Point Broadband is putting some
No.
underground high speed.
We've tried at the county level a few times. We know where the dead spots are, but nobody's willing to come through.
Okay, moving right along, office staff at Century Terrace.
I think I'll just jump in, Steve. I think I brought this, I think I sent out a note to everybody, just after some conversations after last month's meeting and some issues that were brought up. I think it really justifies a good discussion about staffing, at least on a part-time basis over there. to have more of a presence. And maybe combine that with some other services too. That office is big enough that we could certainly staff and allow other agencies to be in there.
Well, truthfully, the bulk of our apartments are at Century Terrace, not at Harborview. And it would be a lot more, it would be easier on our residents to just walk down the hall versus having to get out and go over to Harborview.
20 years ago, that's where the office was.
Yes.
Do we have an idea of what their overall cost would be yet? Because you'd have to have communication.
Yeah, IT, I guessed about $10,000.
And equipment like desks, I can tell you right now, because I just ordered one, it's $4,000 alone, so you're
For a
talking
desk?
two, yeah.
I might be able to get you some desks.
Well, we need to have I don't know what happened to all the old equipment. I
Maybe
know
some
there's,
storage.
there might be some, I
I
don't know.
don't think so.
But, I mean, it doesn't have to be,
Doesn't have to be perfect, but
No.
I don't want it to be hobbled.
Yeah.
Or substandard or.
Yeah, we do have, the staff during COVID were working remotely. So we do have, I think we pretty much have all the equipment we need, other than the chair, the desk, those type of items.
Good cleaning.
Yeah.
maybe some painting.
Yeah.
Security.
Yeah.
I do, I do believe, like, my thought, if it's acceptable to this whole commission, would be, for an office to be sitting there. So if a mental health counselor or mental health case manager, someone comes over and wants to meet with somebody, there's a spot. If DHHS wants to have a worker drop in, there's a place. If senior center wants to meet with whoever, we have a drop in for people. We can do that to bring other services to the building. I'm not really sure we'd want to charge. Yeah, so it's like that would be a access point, but in all those situations, that office is a place where you only have one door to get out. And so you have to kind of say, maybe somebody shouldn't be there by themselves, or, so that would be that reception type of
Yeah.
job, but they'd have to schedule appointments in these timeframes whenever they're around. So
Yeah.
those details, I think, are going to be important to work out. Or, have that door that has the security code on it, have that be an access door and then lock the other one. I don't, there's many scenarios.
seems to me there used to be a window
in the
there.
door.
There was a window, an opening that you could see out. I don't think we can see out into the hallway.
No, I think the mailboxes are.
Yeah, something's
There
changed.
used to be a window.
I don't
Yeah, there
remember
did used to be a window there.
what happened, and that's probably easily restorable,
Mhm.
my guess. It's what's drywalled over or. I think I guess the point is, if you think it's an idea, then to move forward, then I think that's up to us to work on some details and.
I think it's great.
I
Social
think it's
security.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I think, yeah, social security, all kinds of people. Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Well, the big thing is just make sure we have staff there for our residents over there.
But I think it's a space that could be very beneficial.
Yeah,
I think so. It's a community drop-in spot and
There's a lot of
It'll be-
activity in.
yeah. it'll be
Private services
Mhm.
spot, so
Yep.
they could talk privately with different services.
And I think
job
that could,
coaches.
that could be managed even while we're there. There's
Yeah.
privacy space in there. There's separate offices. We were in there last.
Yeah, there's that whole separate.
2
back
months
office.
ago.
Last month.
Yeah, last month. Time's flying, Steve.
I know, last year.
It was last year.
I think it's a great idea. I'd like to, somebody, I think Mick might have said, let's kind of get some numbers around this too. And then look at what we're looking to hire, maybe a part-time just receptional, or, do you want some sort of work defined in their job description? But if you put all that together as a proposal, so we know overall.
Yep.
What it's gonna cost.
But we have to be careful. We're already talking about hiring another
Yep.
assistant executive director and then now another
That is
person.
why I want it all.
Well, and I am researching, Commissioner Pelton had an idea, West Shore Community College internships. So I am contacting, I reached out when I was here, I was trying to, I received several cards. So I'm gonna try and actually find possibly someone through West Shore, even if it was like a cost sharing position. Somebody that possibly, you know, in the field of IT or, public administration, that might be interested in working through the college for us.
Stick through the administration stuff. I mean, it has to have people skills.
Yep.
It'll be a project.
Yeah.
This is not something.
Not gonna happen next month.
And along the same lines, because you had those comments after last month's meeting, I think that after our monthly meetings, we should have, for lack of a better word, a coffee hour for commissioners just to hang out, and any of the residents or whatever that want to talk directly to us or to our staff can do it there for a half hour or so after the meeting.
We keep our meetings on track.
Yeah,
I think they've been pretty much on track.
Yeah. Good work.
Okay, the presentation and discussion has been moved to 11. Baker Tilly is 12, so we'll go into reports and communications. Operations Manager, Executive Director.
seven.
I thought we-
Yeah,
And
flipped it up.
Okay, so just to clarify.
7 is going
Seven.
to 11.
Going to 11, we're not adjourning. Adjourning is
No.
12.
So, oh, okay, so,
That way the presentation will be during an open meeting.
okay, all right.
Okay, so inspections at Century Terrace and Harborview. Harborview was completed on Tuesday. Century Terrace will be completed. We started yesterday. Kevin and Lisa and myself started at Harborview. And then Lisa and Kevin finished inspections up at Harborview. They started them at Century Terrace yesterday and they will complete them today. So 100% of Century Terrace and Harborview will have completed the annual inspections as of within the next couple hours here. I have reached out to our IT company for help with getting the website usable. So I'm hoping this time next month, I can report that actually people can go on the website, apply for housing, request a work order, send emails to staff, commissioners, and actually have that usable. So we are, and I have Britton did sit through some of the trainings with me. It is proprietary. So it is so Revise sets up a lot of government websites. It is a proprietary system. So I did reach out to other IT companies in Manistee, website companies, asking them, and most of them only service their own. So I do have our administrative assistant, Britton. I've asked her to dedicate so many hours per week to strictly working on the website. And then also with our IT and Revise, we're going to team and tag it, and we're going to get that website usable.
Now, is that website live now?
Yes, but
We can
it's not
go to it on the
usable.
internet and see it.
Yes, but if you clicked on do a service request, there's not enough information on there for you to actually tell us to do a work order for you. But I'm hoping this time next month it will be.
So it really isn't functional yet.
Correct. It's functional, but not
Functional, but
usable.
not
So when it does become functional, are we going to get rid of replace it with, replace the one that's in the city directory now?
Well, yeah, I need to get with Ed on that to get a recommendation because I still
You just
think
linked.
it's nice to hit the link. Yes, I would still like them to be able to click on that and then link to us.
Yeah,
Nope, for sure.
Yep, so I'll work with Ed on that as well, once it's usable.
Yeah, and that's just, like I said, they just build a link So when you hit on,
Housing.
it goes right into that seamlessly from the customer's point of view.
I did upload some of the minutes on there, so I did get a few things when we were initially going through the initial training. So there, and then the resident council minutes, we can upload to that, and we're getting,
I'd like to ask, so the minutes that are being posted, are we posting our recorded minutes? Or are we reposting?
the typed minutes.
So what are we doing with the recordings?
So the city uploads those. So that is
Okay,
on
so
the
we are
city's
keeping them.
website.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would need to
Otherwise,
go
we
to the
have to
city's
pass
website.
the board has to dispose.
Well, it's not the city's website. It is the county,
Yeah.
whatever they call that.
I would continue to, I would
Yeah.
like to continue.
Okay, just having to make
paying-
sure that we are,
They charge us a small fee annually to do that, but I think
Okay.
it's well worth it.
yeah, no, there's a requirement. If they're not, if you don't keep, or if you don't use these, then you, as a board, have to dispose.
Yeah, the county is on there, all the city department meetings are on there, and we
Yeah,
are
that's
on
my-
there as well, so.
The other thing I want to go back to was your inspections. Excuse me. I just want to highlight that these are occurring. I think this is your, how many, third time we've gone through the inspection process?
I believe
Third time. But prior to this,
3 years,
at
and
least,
it is required by HUD, you do annually.
and that's, I think, important that people understand that, yes, we love you living in the facilities that we have, that, but there are requirements that we have to, by law, follow. And inspections are one of the many.
And it's nice too, because, then if there's a work order that they didn't realize they should have called in. So if you
Yep.
have a loose screw in your cabinet, and if we find it during inspection, then the cabinet door is not gonna fall off, and then we get a work order because now the door is laying in the kitchen sink. It's nice to be able to keep the units maintained.
But I have heard, I don't want them coming in my apartment. And my response is, I am sorry, but this is HUD. This is an expectation. We have to inspect every single apartment. There's no choice. It's an expectation. So I think that, I had to explain that to somebody. So I just want that to be certain that people understand that this is not just because we want to see what's in your apartment. This is because we are inspecting the apartments to keep them in a condition that is suitable and assure that they are being cared for.
And we have came so far on the bed bug and
Yes,
roaches,
yeah,
that this also gives us an opportunity. Now, every bed and couch or recliner does have a moat on it. So when we're doing these inspections, we're looking at those moats to see if there is a bed bug in them.
Mhm.
We also have little glue traps in the bathroom and in the kitchen, that if there's a roach on there, we use this inspection. So actually, I'm very pleased to report that we have cleared like 99%, 100% of the units at Harborview have been cleared of, there are no, I don't believe we've had roaches there,
Infestations at all?
but yes.
Okay.
But at Century Terrace, I believe we're down to just one unit that we're, still trying to treat, but we're having a little bit of difficulty because of the person has allergies, and we have to be careful what we treat with. And then there's a lot of times they cancel due to sickness. So we're actually so close. We're like 99% ready to be cleared if we could just, continue to work.
In congregate buildings like that, it takes the community who live there to cooperate to make sure that these things don't spread. So if your neighbor is not taking their garbage out, not cleaning that apartment, not whatever, they are, putting everybody maybe on that floor at risk. And it spreads. We know how quickly it spreads. So you have done a fabulous job. I've been on this board for almost 5 years. I spent at least the first couple of years every time talking about bed bugs. Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yeah, public housing, 100% clear.
thank you.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I reiterate what Karen said. As a former housing inspector, people have to understand, to get the benefit of living in subsidized housing, you have to follow a guideline. And it's a checklist. You're not making stuff up as you go along. It's a checklist of what needs to be in place in each unit. Range has got to work, everything's got to work. If it didn't work, should have reported it. So I applaud you guys. We have come so far. And I hope the residents really understand how far we have come.
Anything else, Lori?
Yes. So I have started discussions with the Manistee County Community Foundation and the city manager regarding improvements along the river at Harborview and Century Terrace. So there might be a chance that we'll be applying for grants. So I'll be bringing more information back on that. Johnson Control, I did provide you with the proposal for, it was just over $12,000 for the smoke detectors. So I did meet with Johnson Control and we were able to reduce that down to $6,351.27. So I am still working on getting the carbon monoxide detectors installed. We are not in compliance with our mission inspection until we do that. So I'm still working on mitigating that. Resident council,
Excuse me,
Suggestion.
back to the fire detectors.
smoke, carbon monoxide,
Are you talking about CO2 detectors or are you
Yeah.
talking about smoke detectors?
CO2.
Okay, because originally, you started by saying smoke detectors.
Okay, carbon monoxide detectors is what we were written up for during the mission inspection.
Well, we're between a rock and a hard place. There's no one else that can service it. You've got to cut in half. Good job.
Thanks.
And that's new requirements that even if you don't, carbon monoxide detectors have to be at the source of the heating plant, or they have to be in each unit. So
And I'm still negotiating that number. So, but once I get to the floors I can, I'm gonna go ahead and have them initiate the installation of the carbon monoxide detectors. There's only 4, one in each utility room and one in each laundry room at Century Terrace and Harborview. Okay, so resident council, one of the concerns that were brought up at the resident council 2 months ago at Harborview, the east door, residents go out that door to take their garbage out and put in the totes. And there was a resident that was taking her garbage out and there was someone else standing out there and the door ran into them. So there is a little window in there, but they actually are requesting that we install a large window in that door so that they can see if there's someone on the other side of the door. So
That's reasonable.
I thought they wanted a push bar to make it easier to get out, but there is already a push bar on there. So what they want is they want to be able to see what's on the other side of the door because the totes are there. So I'm working with Kevin, maybe we make sure the totes aren't directly outside the door, a few feet away, so that if somebody is working on a tote, they're not gonna get hit with the
So that
door.
person was putting their stuff in the tote and stuff, and that's how they got hit.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, boy.
You just have to be careful because that's a fire rated door.
Yeah.
Right, we can't be
And
messing with
You
the
just can't go cut a bigger hole in it necessarily.
Well, because it's an
No, you take
exterior
that one
door,
away and
the
put a new one
New
in.
door.
the door, the one contractor that I talked to, John from Crystal Locks, visited our office. And so I was talking to him about it and he said that actually, because it's a exterior door, that it wasn't, that you could, it's not, the fire rating isn't the same as it is when it's an interior
Talked to
fire
a fire
rating.
marshal before a locksmith.
Yeah,
I think you just replace the door. You take that one door away, buy a new fire door with a bigger window and put it in. And I think it's a reasonable request.
But that's not gonna solve the problem. Even if there's a window and somebody's standing and the totes are right there, I'm not gonna stand with my garbage holding my hand and, it's
Yeah,
like,
so I'm
move
working with
those,
Kevin.
put a sign that says, do not stand by the doorway opened often. And, you can still look at Steve's stuff, but move them so that there's room for people, more than one person to be out there.
Right.
Yeah, but I want the residents to feel that when they do bring up something at the resident council meeting, that I am following through
right.
and, trying, if I can, help them make it.
This
If I
is
can
a-
make a change, I will, but
This is a safety issue. Yes, just move those, put a sign up and then check into what, Steve said.
yeah, the shoots used to be closed at Century Terrace on Fridays. We have changed the schedule so that the shoots are open on Fridays now for Century Terrace residents to use the garbage chutes as well.
But this is Harbor View. that
This
we're
is
talking
Harbor
about.
View, but this is something else that I was just moving on to,
Oh, okay.
some of the concerns that the residents had.
Oh, yeah.
So they were, happy that we are listening to them and we are trying to fulfill any of the requests that we can. The pedestals have still not arrived yet for the laundry room equipment. I should check on those. And that is all I have.
Do you think, it would be prudent to have the president of the resident council give a report every month to this commission? Or on an as-need basis?
And I think if we have them at Century Terrace or Harbor View,
Yeah, or maybe just put a little write-up together.
Just
Yeah.
Kind of send over to us. They don't
Yeah.
have to attend. That can be an inconvenience for them.
yeah, I'll invite the president
Yeah.
January 6th and tell him he's not available. If he would just maybe just let me know if there's any concerns that he would like me to bring up.
That's
for
perfect.
I mean,
Or if he doesn't have any concerns. just-
That's good
He's,
too.
he's been coming, so.
Yeah, he's been coming. He probably would have been here today if it would have been at Harbor View.
Yeah.
So, because we switch back and forth, next month, are we gonna have our meeting our last meeting was at Century Terrace. This one should have been Harbor View. Are we going back to Century Terrace or
No, you
Harbor
go to
View?
Harbor.
We will go to Harbor View next. Okay.
That's it for you, Lori?
It is.
Okay, Mark?
Well, just a couple things. I spent some time talking to Baker Tilly about the report, just kind of so I understand it and have a better idea of what they're recommending. But speaking of bed bugs, I read just the other day, they closed a public library somewhere to treat for bed bugs. So I mean, if that tells you anything.
Not just that.
Well, they can be carried in on your feet.
Exactly.
It's-
So
It's not just, bad housekeeping.
It's,
we already talked about this, but we've been working on audit stuff for the Century Terrace Harbor View submitting documents. The auditors picked by the partnership. The one thing I wanted to bring up, we have this newsletter ready to go and it has your emails on it. I want to make sure that that's something that you want to do, because I want to make sure that you are okay with your personal emails. And if not, and there's some reasons not to have your personal email on published. I know we could create housing commission emails. We've done that in all of our
Yeah, I
entities.
used to have one.
yeah,
We could all have City of Manistee emails, because all of us should have it. And the planning commission, everyone was mandated on the planning commission to have a Manistee.
So you're a board of the,
And the reason was twofold. Number one, for your privacy's sake, but number two, in case there was ever a request for information, you wouldn't have to give up your cell phone or your computer at home for anywhere up to 6 weeks, depending on the case.
yeah,
So,
so get us a private or city one, because I'm not giving up.
and I already have mine from the city, but all we gotta do is make that request into the city of Manistee, and they'll give you, and it's on Outlook. And that's
what I,
So that's the email we'll publish in the
Yeah.
newsletter
yeah.
then. We won't do phone numbers. We'll do that.
You just have to load it up.
So we had talked about resident contact commission.
Yeah, that's
We're trying to make it easier for them, to have that ability.
I think the proper channel would be through an official email.
Yes, absolutely.
Trying to downsize my email.
I know.
Like,
I know.
But, I have a county one, but I just don't know. I'm kind of in my head thinking, I don't know if this information, this is not a county identified role.
Right.
So I guess I should keep it separate and we can go with the city.
I mean, I think you're okay more with a public email than a private email. Because everything in your public is foiable anyway, but the private stuff is stuff that you don't want. Under. So, okay, that's what I thought. So we're gonna.
Thank you
retool
for that.
That's it. That's all, Steve.
Okay, committee reports. Finance Committee, Mick and I have not had a finance meeting in in the last month. We probably should have.
We had one late January though, or late December, so.
Right, it was just before the
Budget.
right? Personnel committee, have you met?
We've met, but we don't have anything to report.
Okay. Commissioner reports. We'll start at the end with you, Karen. Any comments?
Just reminding that today I've been asked to come over to the senior center. I'll be there at 1 o'clock. Mark's going to join me. We're just going to kind of meet with persons over there who's ever interested, just talk about a little bit about housing. I'm going to dabble in some of the information that the county has opened up and identified another committee, which is a housing committee, and we're going to have a meeting here in the next few weeks. And that's just pretty much it.
Okay. Ginny?
Again, on the vacancy report, I mean, it's amazing. There's one unit available and the only unit reason is because the person had issues and didn't fill the spot, but to be 100% compared to 60 vacancies when I came on 3 years ago is like miracle stuff. Thank you so much to our directors for that. And I just have, seriously.
Very much.
Window insulating, does this go to scattered or?
Yeah, that went out to scattered.
Oh,
We gave
that's-
them each 2 kids.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, those work quite well.
Mhm.
And are they all able to do it, figure it out, or
We did tell them to contact us.
if they needed help?
Yeah,
Yeah, because, I mean, that's great. Thank you for giving that to the residents. Okay, that's all I got.
Mick?
Other than the fact that the open house I thought was a great success.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
open
that
house.
had it was a nice positive way of showing the public that the housing is really working hard towards making quality of life an important issue for us. And I thought it was very well done. So chocolate was great.
Yeah, oh, can I go back to that? The woman, the resident that's moving in there has not had a home in over 2 years. And this is awesome. That building has been vacant for 5 years that I know of. Could be longer.
She
It was
showed up,
2021.
he showed up there.
Pardon
And
me?
that's how we
it was
got it.
2021. It was September 20th of 21 is when the last resident moved out of that unit. So I just had to look it up because we have to do ready slips when a unit's ready. So I'd look it up so Kevin could show exactly. And so I had to look it up to see who the last resident was, and it was September 20th of 2021,
So,
1717 Vine.
yeah, but did they leave it?
I think they left before.
Yeah, but didn't they leave it really damaged?
Oh,
or-
it was terrible.
No,
Yeah,
it was
okay.
broke into and vandalized.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
a,
It was also damaged.
because
Yeah.
when I got on the board, I was told
Yes.
that was not repairable. It was so bad.
Yeah, I was also told the same thing.
So about 3.5 years it sat vacant.
Well, they did a beautiful job. It's great. I'm
And-
glad that she showed up and now she has a home.
Yeah, and also you use all local contractors to get it done, which we appreciate, and it is really nice. Everybody that went from the public that has talked to me were very impressed with it.
She's excited their kids can get signed up for schools here instead of bouncing around, and it's all good.
It's all good.
And it looks like you got a couple of new clients out of the,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, a great way of.
Yeah, the new resident was
advertising
out of
the-
town,
The
but
requirement.
it was nice that some other prospective residents were
Yeah.
able to show up and see what the inside of the units look like.
It's great.
Anything else, Mick?
Nope, that's it.
And the rest of them have heard my comments, so in the essence of time, I'll keep my mouth shut. Receive communications. Amy, Laurie?
No, just, we can move on to the vacancy report. Looks like
Vacancy report?
said there's only, one apartment currently at Century Terrace, and public housing is 100% occupied.
Fantastic. And the newsletters, any comment on them? other than are in our packet?
Yeah, with the inclement weather, we are having parking issues. Everyone wants to park as close to the building as they can. I don't blame them. But we do have a lot of people that are not handicapped, parking in the handicap spots. So I am, the city police department is helping me enforce that. So I'm warning everybody in the newsletter that's going out today. We are, letting everyone know where it's a $50 fine. And we will be enforcing that. So please leave that for people that actually do have a handicap parking sticker, or you will receive a fine. And if it's not paid within, if it's not paid within 14 days, it goes to $100. And then if it's still not paid, then I believe it's a court matter. So I am giving everyone a heads up on that first. And then the newsletter, what else do we have in there?
It just says, do we have something on there, how to get a handicap sticker if it's just that they don't?
So if they have to go to Secretary of State.
Yeah,
Right.
but do we
But-
let that in the newsletter?
Do we put that, maybe that would be
Next
something
newsletter.
to add, and just let them know that if you are handicapped, even if it's temporarily,
Yeah.
you can just go to the Secretary of State's office and with the doctor.
Do we have vehicles towed that are in handicap spots?
We try to not ever tow a vehicle if we can help it. So we always work with the resident, and that's last resort. So if there's snow piled up on the whole car and I cannot have any contact with the person and they refuse. So otherwise, so if a car gets towed, it's because we've exhausted our efforts trying to work with the resident to tow
I
it. So
probably shouldn't have asked that because now that makes it more accessible. People that want to work.
So we do have numbers that, I mean, they all have a ticket in their window who owns that vehicle, right?
no,
Go to
well,
them.
yes and no.
Okay.
So I'm working, actually, I'm gonna reach out to, Jack Pine. Is it Jack Pine?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm gonna see how much they will charge me for numbered parking stickers.
Yeah.
So once we have that, then yes, so 101, we can look at the register, we'll
Yeah.
know that that's, apartment 621.
Yeah.
But we do not have that currently. It just says you're a resident. It doesn't say.
We have stickers though.
We do have stickers, but we have no idea.
Who it is.
It's-
Right.
That'd be nice, because then it's like if you're driving in and it's like, oh, I could call that person up and like, better move it before the city gets here.
Exactly.
Is that it?
On the newsletter, yes.
Okay. Now we're to public comments. Have any public comments? They're limited to 5 minutes and
I get 5 minutes today?
if you want, yeah.
Oh, bless your heart.
Give us your name and what you're here for.
Margaret Boyd, I was here last month okay. I want to continue where I left off last month. And I understand perfectly that there are regulations, rules, blah, 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 okay? I would like to continue from the last meeting. Deborah Kaiser is my daughter. Clint and Lindsay allowed her and Bear an apartment over 6.5 years ago. They gave her a second chance over her past, okay? Your management has ruled against her and called Bear vicious. He is 11 years old and he's not vicious. He doesn't even know he's a dog. But the dog incident that happened in the lobby that they told us was on camera, we asked numerous times to see the video, only to find out the cameras weren't not working. I did a Freedom of Information Act with the police department. No report was ever filed and no dog saw a vet. There's more to this than meets the eye. The other lady now has another dog. Now, when your management took Deb to court, she asked the judge for a jury trial. He gave her 7 to 14 days to get a lawyer. This was on a Tuesday. 3 days later, your people went back to the court and got Deb evicted because she was a no-show. The judge gave Debbie 7 to 14 days, not your management people. Okay? Now I'm gonna go down here to Carla. As far as Carla Polanski, I still have her at my home. Michigan has laws against elder abuse. You know she was evicted and banned. What you don't know is she asked for help from the office. She was told to deal with it. Is that how you treat a 69-year-old person? She got no help at 69 with multiple health issues, including a semi-truck accident that kept her in a coma for 9 months. The police found no records against her, but the lady she hit had warrants against her for elder abuse. Her stepmother told Carla how sorry she was about what happened. How did this person get into CPS? The letter Carla received that I talked to you and you have copies of from last month overrode what the judge called what happened. It was not assault battery that I mentioned last month, but it is it going to be corrected? Is that letter, the last sentence, going to be corrected? The judge ruled, what was the word? Jostling, not assault and battery. But her letter has assault. The facts show that it was assault and battery. You had the letter. Is that going to be corrected? Or do I have to write the judge? Okay. I've been to Choices, talked to Rochelle there. I talked to a lady at HUD. I'm here, I want to see fairness for the elderly in your housing development. And I will continue this till my last breath is gone. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, announcements and upcoming meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is on the 20th of February at 9 a.m. It's gonna be Harborview or Central Terrace? Harborview? Harborview.
That was 25th?
20 or 220.
February 20th.
Okay, and that brings us to the Baker Tilly part of the program. A little early. I don't know if Baker Tilly's here or not yet.
They were here, right?
So, well, I went to allow them in and.
Oh, I thought that guy that was up front was him.
He's the IT guy here.
Oh, maybe I did. Oh my
Better
God.
not get him.
So yeah, I might have to get.
So do you have,
I just asked Cindy.
are they online? Are they online? Are they gonna do online?
Yes,
Because it could be down your teams
that's
there.
what I thought.
Yeah.
Wait, do you want-
Our guest here today, the Baker Tilly part of this is what we're looking at with doing with the 47 scattered sites. And possibly more housing besides that. So this is a consultant that we have hired and they're coming back with their initial reports. That's what this is gonna be about.
Steve, thanks for listening.
You're welcome.
If I get an answer to some of this.
Technology when it works.
Yeah.
Got a whole baby.
So frustrating. Oh, wait a second. That's Brian Green.
What's the argument?
It clicks it.
Hi, everybody. Just letting you know I'm here.
Oh,
Okay,
there he is.
well, Brian, we're ready for you.
He wasn't there. He wasn't there, Mark.
He wasn't there?
No.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, Brian.
He's got the same name as my first
Good morning,
name.
everybody. Let me just make sure, let me give all my colleagues a signal, okay? So I might need a few minutes, all right?
Yeah,
Yep.
you're
For them to
fine.
join, okay?
So
Did I push it fast enough for you, Mark?
you did. I'm very proud of you, Steve. I didn't want to browbeat you, but that's the way to do it.
So does everyone have their presentations
Good
documents?
copy, right?
It is, so let me get, I have one for.
This one, assessment of house.
Yeah.
Copy.
I read it till my eyes.
Here, you gotta admit that. You got it, Mark, or?
No, I better.
You got it, Karen. I was,
Mark said I better not.
you wanted to make sure Bill had it.
How you doing? Thank you.
We still have a Riverside meeting after that.
Yes, that'll take
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Are there other people still coming in?
I believe, yes. Caitlin,
Brian, is Caitlin joining us?
Yeah, she's responding to me on, to let me know she's entering any second now. Yeah. Yeah, we were, all waiting with bated breath for the, signal to join.
Thank you. Oh, it's right here. Yeah. It's right.
okay,
Yeah, I was looking.
all right, so you had, okay.
Mark and Lori, let's just allow, Caitlin a second to, she may be coming in from another meeting. Just give her, I know she's working on making her way through the technology.
Try to keep the recording all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. She is. Hi, Caitlin.
Hello.
It seemed, that's okay.
You're off camera.
Yeah.
No, they are. I think that's terrible.
I could, you could lean in. Yeah, maybe.
I can move it. I can move it.
Are we okay to start this now?
Yep. Yep.
Well, welcome Baker Tilly. Let you get right into it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having us today. My name is Caitlin Canine, and I'm here to introduce our team. We all work for Baker Tilly, which is a top 10 accounting firm, but we have a small affordable housing practice of 35, 40 professionals that just work on affordable housing transactions across the country. So we work with for-profit developers, nonprofit developers, and public housing authorities, and help them do affordable housing transactions, whether that's rehab or new construction, and helping them to find ways to finance the projects through maybe low-income housing tax credits or other soft financing sources. So with me today, I have my colleagues Brian Greenan, who previously worked for a housing authority and is going to chat with you guys today about repositioning. And I have my colleagues, David Harms and Kevin Mitchell. David used to work for a developer previously and has great Michigan experience. And Kevin's a financial analyst on our team, and they're going to talk about the financial analysis that we prepared. So, our role with the project, and when we start working with a public housing authority, our first step is to really understand and review their portfolio. So we do this by interviewing the housing authority's employees and staff, learning about the properties, reviewing any financial reports or third-party reports that were prepared to get a really good understanding of the operations and any capital needs that the property might have. And once we have that deep understanding, then we run various scenarios and financial options, and then can make recommendations for how we think, a housing authority should move forward. So kind of with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian to kick things off with the analysis that we prepare for you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Caitlin. Good morning, everybody. It's great to meet you all virtually. I am going to try and finish my piece in less than 6 minutes, so we allow as much time as possible for all of the questions I imagine you're going to have about what we're discussing. I'm going to try and convey this in as layman terms as I can, but also just focusing on giving you as much time as you need for questions so that you feel comfortable with the material. So just as Caitlin mentioned, I previously worked for a public housing agency in Maryland. I was a development manager for 5 years, working on all different manners of taking public housing units, out of the public housing program that HUD has and putting them on a long-term Section 8 platform. And all the things we're going to talk about today involve some manner of doing that, finding a higher rental subsidy for units to keep them affordable for households on lower incomes. Prior to that, I worked on community and economic development projects throughout Maryland for 10 years. So really excited about this opportunity. Wanted to walk you through how we got to today. So we were procured from the Housing Commission after responding to a request for proposals just for those 47 public housing units. We were interviewed on February 29th of 2024. We signed a contract with the Housing Commission in March of 2024. And one really important note before we jump into the weeds of the analysis is all we've been retained to do to date is focus on those 47 public housing units in your portfolio. We have not looked at any of the other units that the Manistee Housing Commission has oversight of. That's really important for the context of our discussion. So we just focused on the 27 duplexes and the 20 single family units that you currently have. And I'm going to try and share a screen to give you a little bit of a frame of reference. I'm not sure if, I guess it depends on how big your screen is, if you can even see what I'm looking at. Will anybody be able to see this? That's probably a key question.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We have
Oh,
a
big
big
enough?
screen, Brian. We have a very big screen.
Okay, great. Okay, so yes, so we're going to use this term a few times throughout the next 30 minutes. Repositioning, that's a HUD term. What does that mean to the ordinary person? What does that really mean in layman terms? Well, repositioning is the various forms of Section 8 rental subsidy that HUD offers to move public housing units onto a track that make them eligible for the amounts of funding that are needed in reality, that are needed to rehab them or replace them altogether with new construction at rental levels that ordinary people can still afford. When you reposition a unit, using again HUD speak here, you are removing it from the public housing program and you're putting it into HUD's Section 8 housing program. We'll get into a little bit about why that typically is better for your average community. I don't particularly find the term helpful. So basically, your 47 units are under an annual contributions contract with HUD. They're on what HUD calls the Section 9 platform right now. They've been on that since the beginning, since their inception. The level of subsidy provided by the federal government to keep that rent low and to keep those units in good working order is 99% of the time not enough to achieve those goals I just stated. Good working order and so forth. So to that end, what HUD has been encouraging folks to do for the last 10 to 15 years is consider the Section 8 rental subsidy track, which is often a higher level, almost always a higher level of subsidy than what the public housing program offers. And then if there's one thing I would hope you would take away for your future decision-making discussions with your board, it is with Section 8 rents, with Section 8 rental subsidy, HUD provides long-term contracts. So it's a long-term commitment. And then under Section 8, the Housing Commission is allowed to use debt and equity to make long-needed repairs or renovations to the units, AKA financing. Financing can also be used for significant rehab or replacement of those units altogether with newly constructed units, but still at the same level of low rents for the households that are at those incomes now. It is very hard to get financing to keep units as public housing. Very hard. We didn't even get into any of those options in this analysis because the outcomes were not financially feasible. So that means I've already gone 5 minutes. So I'm going to move a little bit faster. If you heard my alarm clock there. I visited Manistee in May of 2024. I spent several hours with Director Hatchu and the Housing Commission staff. I visited many of the units that you are analyzing for your decisions. I reviewed documents that I was provided that day. I took those financial statements back to my teammates that you're going to meet in a few minutes. I took my own photos. I spent additional time after meeting with your team to take pictures and just to get to know the community better. And then that same week, I met with Mark, your operations director, at a conference in Lansing. Mark really wanted to make sure I understood the importance of keeping our focus at all times on the people that live in these units now and the people that will live in these units in the future, and the limited relocation options that exist within and around Manistee. Mark really stressed the lack of available housing alternatives for people that do not make a lot of money in and around Manistee as well. So I've made sure that my teammates have kept that in mind as we've looked at what is available through the State Housing Finance Agency and other sources, as we've come up with options that we think are the most financially feasible for your board's consideration. We drafted the assessment last autumn. We got feedback from Housing Commission staff to make revisions, and then we submitted our report in November. And so the report kind of outlines multiple options to move those 47 units, again, from where they are now in the public housing program onto HUD's Section 8 program. So with the time we have today, we're only really going to focus on 2, and then let you have a detailed discussion when you're ready with your team to decide which path you want to go down. 2 options within that report. Again, both involve going onto the Section 8 platform. Both involve Section 8 contract rents. They are known as Rental Assistance Demonstration, also known as RAD, and Section 18. It's another path, but both at the end of the day get you into the Section 8 housing program with subsidies from HUD. So in a nutshell, and I want to just really touch this really lightly so I give as much time for David to speak and Kevin to speak and for your questions. Option 5 in your report is a blend of different Section 8 subsidy tools that HUD authorized last month for smaller housing commissions like Manistee. At least 10% of the units would switch to the rental subsidy available through the RAD tool, and up to 90% of the units would take on the rental subsidy level available through another tool, which I just mentioned, called Section 18. Our analysis shows that the Section 18 tool offers a higher subsidy level in the Manistee area than what's available through the public housing program and through that RAD tool. That's a lot of acronyms. That's a lot of terminology. What it basically means is you're still, no matter what, we're recommending that the units go onto, not recommending, excuse me. Our analysis shows that the Section 8 tool offers the highest level of subsidy to switch out of public housing and to attract the significant amount of financing you would need to do rehab in some of the units and to replace the rest of the units with new construction. Option 6. In layman terms, option 6 means all 47 of the units would leave the public housing program and take that much higher level of rental subsidy available through that Section 8 tool. So in other words, all 47 units, 100% of them would take that Section 8 rental subsidy tool and go on to the Section 8 housing contract path that way. David and Kevin will go into a bit more detail on what that actually looks like in terms of financial feasibility. And I, again, will leave as much time as possible for you to ask us questions to help explain what that all means. So,
Ryan?
Yeah.
Are you talking, you just said using Section 8, I think you're talking about Section 18?
No, they're 2 different things, right? The Section 18 is a tool to provide higher rental subsidy under the Section 8 housing program offered by HUD.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so option 5 is a blend of that Section 18 tool and that RAD tool But at the end of the day, they're all under the Section 8 housing program operated by HUD. I hope that helps a little.
Yes.
All right, with that, I'll transition over to David and Kevin.
Thanks, Brian. And great to meet you all this morning. Was maybe a little bit more confident before I heard about how big a screen I'm apparently projected on there on the other side of the room, but I hope I brushed my teeth this morning. I'm here to talk about kind of the financing options that are available for properties once they're in that Section 8 program. So as Brian said, one of the principal kind of benefits of a repositioning strategy is that it does allow you to access financing sources that are not available while the units are still in public housing. The primary financing tool in the United States for affordable rental housing is the low-income housing tax credit. So I think often it feels like everything's kind of steering toward tax credits when you're sort of new to thinking about things in this way. And that's largely just because that's the largest tool kind of from a resource standpoint that's available for these types of projects. And a lot of the other, what we would call soft sources of funding, are often used in conjunction with the low-income housing tax credit program. There are two forms of the low-income housing tax credit, but for the demolition and new construction scope that we were asked to evaluate here, it would really be the more competitive 9% credit that would be sufficient to finance that scale of repositioning. The good piece about that competitive credit is that it does end up covering around 70% of the cost of the project as a whole. And so, unlike that means that generally the project's able to borrow the bulk of the remaining money for doing the project. Those competitive credits are distributed to each state. In Michigan, it's MISTA, the Michigan State Housing and Development Agency, that is responsible for developing a set of rules, how they're going, defining how they're going to allocate those credits among different development proposals that they receive. They update those priorities generally every 2 years in Michigan. And so there will be, kind of 3 or 4 rounds where they're accepting proposals for those tax credits under a set of rules before they're updated. Where we're at right now is kind of the end of that 2-year cycle. So we would expect MISTA to set another set of scoring priorities this summer. And there would be kind of a public engagement process now around people advocating for those rules changing a little bit. One component of competing for that credit and executing projects with the low-income housing tax credit is having a strong, experienced development partner. So even as these rules change by the state, it's going to remain important to have a development partner that is experienced in using that tax credit, has the financial capacities to make guarantees to a tax credit investor that would be involved in the project, and can kind of supplement our efforts to provide insight into how to make those applications as competitive as possible. For that reason, I think procuring a development partner early on, gives you one more team member to help evaluate different strategies for how you might finance this portfolio, and also provides you an informed partner for helping to advocate for updates to the state's priorities for how those credits are allocated. Because the process is so competitive for those credits, often it's helpful to retain some flexibility around what the project looks like or the development plan looks like, so that you can be responsive to those state funding sources. I think your role kind of as asset managers or stewards of this portfolio is to be clear about what is kind of essential to the project and what is something that you could kind of give on. I think a good example would be, if the state is saying we really want projects that have an extremely high level of energy efficiency, that may not be kind of a core priority of yours starting out, but that may be something that you want to sort of retain the flexibility to add to the project if that makes the application more competitive. Similarly, looking at, kind of going back with a townhome setup or duplexes or single family homes, I think knowing sort of what you feel like is an effective way of serving the residents in your community and your portfolio is an important part of being prepared to respond to those funding priorities when they're released from the state. And the final piece from that I would say is, any given funding plan for the state is going to kind of advantage some types of projects more than others. And it's probably going to leave some types of very good projects without a realistic path to win a funding award. And so that's an important piece of kind of advocating for the priorities in the state funding document, but also I think something to be aware of, once that document comes out, that there may not be a way to do exactly what you had hoped to do, kind of prior to those funding priorities being released. So I think that was kind of where I was prepared to leave it and go into questions. Thank you. And Kevin, I think you can probably take the screen down there, and then if there's specific things that from the report that you wanted to see highlighted, we can pull those up, or if there's questions from Brian or I's presentation, we're happy to entertain those now.
Okay, so you're looking basically at low-income housing tax credits, right?
All of the scenarios that we evaluated from a financing standpoint utilized the 9% low-income housing tax credit.
But then you show that our probable score probably isn't going to be high enough to qualify for the 9%.
Under the current scoring criteria from the state, I was not finding a pathway for this project to kind of contort itself into the specific funding priorities for the state. But as I said, that's something that's going to be updated this summer. So the funding priorities that are out there now are set to be used in a funding cycle that would be due in April, and that would be the last round under these scoring priorities. Historically, they've done kind of an April and October round, so we would hope that in the October round this fall, there might be some changes to that scoring that would make this more competitive.
We'll know too, and the October round scoring will be released any day now. So we'll know.
So we'll know.
We'll know. We would compete under the open category, rural category. But we have, bringing project-based rental assistance in, we compete very well against other projects. So I think we could put together a competitive project. And if we do an RFP for a developer, I would have them provide some sort of scoring analysis as part of their submission. Does that make sense, Baker Tilly?
Absolutely. I think that's a good reason to have a development partner engaged earlier on is the ability to weigh in on some of those earlier decisions.
Mark, I'll just say, Mark and team, our analysis is very conservative, using the information available to us in 2024. That's the intent there, is to give you options that we think are the most realistic for your board to chew on and digest and consider, knowing that more guidance is coming out soon from MISTA, and that would allow us to modify things going forward. And as David said, ideally with an experienced developer, in hand to help inform that self-scoring process.
In the scenarios, is it possible to expand the numbers of scattered sites? I mean, we keep talking about the original 47, but as we discussed earlier today, we're at basically at 100% in our from the Housing Commission occupancy. And obviously in our community, there is a lot more need that has not been addressed. Is that another scenario? Maybe sometimes, bigger is better.
Yeah, and that is part of what we looked at for there's sort of four strategies in the financing section at the back. The two columns furthest to the right would represent an expansion of Manistee's overall inventory of units. And so unfortunately, the amount of tax credits that MISTA is willing to allocate to one project is not particularly supportive of going beyond 48 units in a single transaction. And so what we looked at was the possibility of identifying some land in Manistee, purchasing that, constructing 37 new townhomes at that that kind of, at this point, hypothetical location as one transaction, and then moving the Section 8 voucher support that Brian talked onto those units, so they would still benefit from those higher rents. And then there is a program that HUD has as well that would allow you to potentially increase the number of units and still provide voucher support for them under Restore Rebuild. And so we then looked at kind of a second transaction that would be constructing new townhomes on the location of the existing lots that were kind of vacated by the first transaction. And I think that is probably something that's a little more attractive to a development partner if there's, kind of more than a one development pipeline available. And I think also probably solve some of the relocation challenge that a community like Manistee is likely to have, just because there's so little housing available to house folks in temporarily while you're renovating or building new units.
So what you're saying is that right now we're guaranteed 47 Section 8 vouchers. That we could possibly expand that with HUD would give us more vouchers.
Yeah, I'll just, Caitlin might want to add more color to what I'm about to say. I do want to clarify, we're not guaranteed 47 vouchers under any scenario. It's really important to note that when you do apply when you use that Section 18 tool we're talking about, you then, when you get approval from HUD for that piece of it, you then need to request the tenant protection vouchers that get tied to the units. And so it's HUD's discretion through your field office and through the HUD National Voucher Team to determine how many vouchers you actually get. You get a lot of help from HUD recapitalization if you go through a RAD Section 18 blend, if you use both tools, and which is kind of what we're alluding to in option 5 and in earlier options in the report. You get a lot more help, human infrastructure support and expertise in HUD to advocate for the maximum number of tenant protection vouchers on the project, but it's really HUD's discretion. And then in option 6, which is kind of what I call in layman terms, just a 100% Section 18 deal, you would be requesting all 47 units, tenant protection vouchers, to be tied to the units. Again, at HUD's discretion, how many you'll actually get. One of the important things I'd like you all to take away is when you use the Section 18 tool, you do generate the ability to build new units through that tool. And that is what David was alluding to, and that helps to answer one of the attendees' questions about, well, what happens next? If we do something with our public housing units, what next? Is there another project available? Are there other options after we renovate them or build new ones to replace them? Yes, using that Section 18 tool, yes, you can generate new units on paper that you could plan a future project out for. And as David alluded to, may help you attract an experienced developer because they'd be working with you more than once. They'd be investing in and planning for project activity for more than one phase.
Okay, just to clear for our guests here on the scoring for the LIHTC, the low income tax credit properties or grant, is the most possible that you can get from LIHTC is a score of 143. The last round, the accepted projects had a score of at least 108. So if you did not have 108 or above score, you did not qualify. And their prognosis, the best that they saw for us right now is at 105. So it's really close. I wanted to, everyone knew exactly where we stand. The other thing is, has Baker Tilly had any experience or thought doing housing TIFs in conjunction with this project?
We didn't model that into these transactions. I believe what we modeled in terms of property taxes was an assessment that was based upon the kind of existing pilot agreement that's in place with the taxing authority there. Pilot and TIF can work together, but it's a little challenging just because the amount of money that's being paid in is already reduced by the pilot, and so what that monetizes to as a source on the front side is not as helpful as it would be in maybe a more commercial development that had a higher property tax bill that was getting paid in.
Okay. Does it score you any higher points if you're cooperating with your city and you use city-owned property, so you didn't have to purchase the property?
Yeah, so one of the, I would say maybe more speculative scoring items on something at this type of a conceptual stage is the cost reasonableness scoring for MISTA. So we were kind of conservatively at numbers that we were hopeful you could build new construction for there. I think anything that reduces the overall cost of the development has the potential to add points back in that category to make an application more competitive. And so indirectly, at least, there would be that source. There are also some of the soft sources that are, I'm thinking specifically of affordable housing program funding from the federal home loan banks that have priority for projects that include donated property.
Any other questions? Well, that's all our questions. So
We got one more.
thank you for the report.
I got one more person to talk.
Yeah.
What kind of a timeline are we looking at? If we wanted to start next, 2 months from now, what kind of a timeline could that give?
Mark, do you want to weigh in on that, Mark? What your desired next step is
Well,
based
so,
on the analysis?
well, yeah, so, so what they're referring to at MISTA is called the QAP, a Qualified Allocation Plan. It's how MISTA divvies up the tax credits that are allocated by the IRS. So it's a Section 42 program. So Brian and team, so the Housing Commission, they have knowledge because we've done a transaction already, although we weren't here and most of the board wasn't here, but there was a RAD transaction with a PBRA component, which is totally different than what we're talking about, and a 9% application or 9% tax credits. So we scored high enough to be awarded. So, I have a sense that we can put together a competitive project. We just need to know what the project is. Is it 47 units or is it two phases? Is it phase 1 and phase 2 where we build new units? Because I think the key is, and my concern was, how are we going to relocate folks?
Right.
I think that's
That's a big concern.
Option 6 requires, we would get tenant protection vouchers, right, Brian? That's our thought process. Then we have to relocate people if we want to build on that site, or we build new units in another place and then those vouchers move. I think it's important to note that existing current residents will never pay more than what they're paying now, 30%. The benefit to the platform that they're talking about, it's more revenue for the Housing Commission because currently we have 2 sources of revenue. We have operating funds and capital funds. which isn't enough to sustain the operation in the long term. We have lots of deferred capital needs, which we will get, if we continue in the public housing program, maybe $100,000 a year. I think that's roughly where we're at. I mean, to maintain 47 units, that's not the long-term solution, particularly with the properties that are aged out and require, some heavy capital needs. But the QAP, that's where the developer would come in and help us. In my mind, we would give this analysis as part of our RFP for a developer and say that, we would like to explore one of these options with our chosen partner. And we need a partner to get experience points to be competitive on a tax credit application. So, I'm optimistic that, we'll see what the scores are now coming out in January for this current round. But I think those are out the window because there'll be a new scoring. I mean, they revise this every year. And one of the benefits that public housing agencies have in the current scoring system is that we get 5 points for bringing preservation or vouchers into the scoring system that other developers don't get. So we already have an advantage. We just need to maximize the points. Is that a fair assessment, David?
Yeah, there are points that are available for you as a public housing repositioning project, specifically in the QAP. There's also some points available for agreeing to take tenant-based vouchers that 100% voucher property like we've proposed here is not eligible for. So I think that's a great example of the kind of thing that would hopefully not survive into a new QAP that would allow you to, take those full 5 points without netting, a couple of other points that you become ineligible for as a result.
I think so the next steps, somebody asked that question. I think we have to work with the community, identify another site, because I don't think there's a way to do this project on the existing site and rehab and relocate folks.
It would be tough.
It would be difficult. So, and I know we've had this discussion. I know Bill's heard me say this, that we need to work with the community and identify areas. And I think that's the next step. Then I think at the same time, we start the process of an RFP for a developer, because this is a long process just to put a tax credit application together. It's months and months of work. So could we be ready by October? I'm not sure about that, but I think we could be ready by next April of 26.
What do you guys think? Do you think we could put it together by October? If we had a partner right away?
Yeah, I think that would be the key. And that's such an important piece that you don't want to, you want to take time to make sure that you're giving folks the time to respond and really evaluate and interview those folks and make sure that you're getting into a multi-year relationship with somebody that you trust and are starting out in a good position on. So I think as Mark said, it's probably attainable, but that partner procurement piece is a big one.
What do you think from the consulting point today to brick and mortar, 3 years?
So if I'll do the math out loud. If we apply in April of 26, so we'd sort of find out if we're awarded in, kind of August of 26, all of the financing, underwriting, design, permitting happens, maybe by the summer of 2027. And it takes probably a year and a half to build. So you're then probably at the end of 28. Beginning of 29, so maybe more like 3.5 to 4 years.
Are you feeling still positive going into this new year that tax credits will be a strong part of the administration?
My feeling is the low-income housing tax credit program has built a pretty bipartisan constituency. I think that there are free market folks that like that this is privately owned housing, not government owned housing, and there are people on both sides of the aisle, are contributing to both sides of the aisle that are making a good living off of it and are supporting the program. That's not to say there won't be disruptions in it. I think that obviously one of the drivers of interest in tax credits is how much taxes, what rate of taxes corporations are paying. And so if there's a substantial change in the corporate income tax rate, that could reduce demand for the credits. But I think the good thing about those types of, sort of industry-wide shocks is that they tend to affect everybody. And every month there will be LIHTC deals that close and move forward. In 2008, when there was no demand at all for tax credits because nobody was foreseeing a profitable period in their immediate future, the federal government came up with a program to buy the tax credits directly and proceed with projects without an equity investor. And so I think, because this is kind of the dominant platform for financing affordable rental housing, I'm pretty confident there will be some way that the transactions that are awarded these competitive projects find a path to closing.
Thank you.
Okay, now take the other side of the subsidy. What about Section 8 subsidies? Will those continue forward or will those have some problems?
Most of the projects that or developments that have received those vouchers have also borrowed private money from banks with them. And I think those banks will be pretty loud and frustrated if those vouchers aren't renewed. So technically the language in that voucher contract will say, subject to annual congressional appropriation. But it's a pretty powerful constituency of folks that would be hurt if those funds are not appropriated. I would say that doesn't mean that the kind of Section 18 and RAD program are available indefinitely. Caitlin or Brian could speak better to this, but there is a finite appropriation for how many of the nation's public housing units can enter that platform.
Yeah, I think currently it's literally a demonstration program, rental assistance demonstration program. So it's not codified in any way. I think the next time it comes up for renewal is 2029. So it just got renewed roughly 12 to 14 months ago. Maybe even less than that. But yeah, it's not a guaranteed forever tool. But I think it's fair to assume it'll continue to be available as you all decide which path you want to go down to plan out a future for these units.
Well, we all think right now it's voluntary to convert, but I think someday in the public housing side, it's going to be mandatory. That may be years and years away, but I think there's a definite movement to get away from the public housing platform. Maybe not in our careers, Brian and Caitlin, but someday.
Yeah.
Well, again, if there's no other questions, we appreciate the meeting and look forward to working with you more in the future.
Thanks
Yeah.
for all.
Thank you for inviting us in.
Thank you very much.
Good
Thank
luck
you.
this weekend.
Good one.
Big game.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, big game. Go Lions.
Brian, do you have any closing? Does anybody have any closing thoughts?
I'll just say I went out there, so I've seen some of these units, maybe half of them at least, inside and outside. I really appreciated going out there. There's no substitute for seeing a community in person. I ate dinner there. I ate at a place that Lori recommended. I had lunch with Lori at another place. I really soaked in Manistee before the tourist season began. Took photos. I felt like I had a decent handle on the community, and then that propelled me to do research on the region on my way back to Maryland. That's the way I think I do my best work, when I've seen something in person, and then I can communicate it more effectively to my teammates who have to do the deep digging on the modeling and the QAP. So thank you again, Lori, for having me, and thank you for the staff. Thank you, Cindy Scott, for all the information you provided last spring and summer. I'm really excited, and I hope you consider us for the next task. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, this concludes our normal meeting. At this time, I would take a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Nick seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, commissioners, we have a
Bye.
Riverside.
Ryan, you got bonus points for saying go Lions.
Yeah, good luck.
Jets fan, by the way, he's a Jets fan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.